So, all right, welcome back, everybody. Still live on Twitch, but we decided to split my end of tour Electric Callboy tour related video into two videos. So if you haven't seen the first one, I'll throw a link in the description where you can go check that out. Or just talking about a lot of stuff off the top of my head, a lot of random things. But with this video, I told you guys I was going to answer your questions about the tour, and I want to do that. How's the first show? The first show was wild. It was kind of like a magical moment for me because I've known about this band for 3 years now, and actually seeing them play live for the first time while being a part of the organization, it was wild. Like at the first sound check of the first show, I was crying. Like I was standing in the middle of the room crying, and Dio, their videographer, was standing next to me, and I could feel in my peripheral that he had his camera on me. And I was like, F off right now. But seriously, shout out to Dio, their tour videographer that was in the States, because I know a lot of you guys know who Christian is that does all their stuff in Europe. Dio is awesome. Fantastic person. Best fan interaction I had? I don't know if I can think of any like best fan interaction, but I will say it was so fucking awesome being able to meet some of you that I knew from like Discord and Twitch streaming and stuff for the past few years. I met a lot of you guys for the first time. That was my favorite. It was great to meet so many of you. And not only that, but like some of the other YouTubers that I've known for years, like got to meet Nick and Aileen and, Metal Burb, Orion, like tons of people were out. It was great. What venue had the best crowd? My gut instinct wants to say Denver. I want to say Denver was the craziest crowd. That was like, they said, they told me that Denver felt like they were playing in Germany. And that crowd was ape shit. I actually had a funny moment in Denver where up until that part of the tour, like we had a lot of moshing and some crowd surfing and stuff. But every day when I do my security meetings with the venue, I kind of tell them what to expect. I'm like, their whole set is nonstop energy from start to finish. You're going to get a lot of jumping, a lot of singing, clapping. You're going to get moshing, but it's not going to be like dickhead moshing. You're not going to get like crowd killing elbows, punches, kicks, all that stuff. It's just, good time moshing. And I was like, and you might get a few crowd surfers here and there. Yeah. Within our first 3 songs of the show in Denver, there were more crowd surfers than the rest of the tour combined. It was insane. They started with like 4 security people in the barricade. And by the end of the show, they had like 12. And at one point during the show, I walked into the house production office just to see how they were doing. And their head of security was like messing with me. And he goes, "Oh, a little bit of crowd surfing, huh?" And I was like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, this is something we've never seen on this tour. So after Denver, I started being like, I over exaggerating my security meetings. Like I started telling the venues, you're going to get a lot of crowd surfing and a lot of moshing. And then in Philly, our show in Philly, I told them this. It's like, you're going to get a lot of crowd surfing and moshing. The Brooklyn Bowl in Philly started Electric Callboy's set with 1 security person in the barricade. And I texted their production manager. I was like, 1 security person, huh? It's like, that's really ballsy. You're going to need more than that. And they did. Wasn't Denver the town with the thin air? Yeah, I actually had advanced oxygen tanks for the side of the stage in Denver. It's another thing. Anytime I do shows in Denver with people that have never played there or they're not used to it, I get oxygen tanks for the side of the stage. They didn't use it a ton, but they used it. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Europeans, Denver is 1,800 meters in elevation. That's a mile for you Freedom Unit users. And I will say, I just saw Maria say the security in Portland was really good about giving out water. Dude, those first few shows we did, I would say everything up to Phoenix, those first like 5 or 6 shows, the hottest shows I've ever done in my life. I thought Nico was going to die in Phoenix. Not literally, but like, dude, they were, and I don't know why, but the Danforth Music Hall in Toronto is always like the hottest venue ever every time I go. There's a thermostat side stage. And when the band walked on stage, the thermostat said 21 Celsius. And I kept looking at it, and every song it would go up by a half a degree. And by the time the set was done, that thermostat was on 30 Celsius. So it went up 9 degrees Celsius from the start to the end of that show. It was insane, dude. I was standing side stage for all these shows and I was sweating my ass off too. And I wasn't even moving around. Now, granted, we had a huge lighting rig on stage, so that probably doesn't help. Hold on, here's a good question. Was David able to talk with me? Yes. What I'm going to say right now, I love David. I think he is one of the most truly kind, happy-go-lucky human beings I've ever met in my entire life. I don't think I've really ever met anybody like him. He's just such a wonderful, nice person. But I think one of the most endearing traits about him is how broken his English can be at times. And I do have a funny story about that. So he had asked me to get him something from the store that you can't find in Germany. It was something, it was like what was it? Excedrin, or it's like a headache medicine. I guess in Germany, it's hard to find stuff with like acetaminophen in it or something like that. Like it's normal headache stuff for us in America. So David asked me if I could find a bottle of it for him. So, and I said I would. And one day, I think when we were in Philly, he was trying to ask me if I had still remembered it. Like if I had remembered the headache medicine. But what he said was, Tanky boy, do you still have the tablets in front of your umbrella? And I looked at him and I said, what the did you just say to me? And he's like, the tablets, are they still in front of your umbrella? And I was like, and the rest of the crew was in the room. I looked at the rest of the crew and I was like, David, can you say to one of these guys in German what you're trying to say to me? And he said it to him. And Bolo, their front of house guy's like, okay, he's trying to literally translate from German. He's trying to ask you if the headache pills are still on your mind. But what he was trying to say was, are they still in your visor, your vision? That's auf dem Schirm. Yeah. Schirm. Sorry, that was horrible. Yeah, he was trying to say, is this still on your radar? But in English, he said, umbrella. Is it still in front of your umbrella? But I love that about him. He is just the most fun-loving, kind person. It was so funny. Like, oh, Virginia, what did he say? Vagina? That might have been my mistake. Because there were a couple times when he asked me how to pronounce cities and I f***ed with him. And I think when he asked me how to pronounce where we were at Blue Ridge, I said Virginia. Sacramento is one of my favorites too. Cause I was always around at the end of the show. So like my post show with them is I would wait for them to walk off stage. I would walk to the dressing room with them and make sure that they were good. And then I would let them do their thing and I would go out and do the rest of my job. But Dio was always there with the camera. And he would immediately talk to them after the show. And I heard him. I was literally like feet away from him in that video. And I kept hearing him say, Sacramento, Sacramento, I love you, Sacramento. And I'm just like, dude. But it's just amazing. Overall, rate the experience. 12 out of 10 would definitely do it again. It was the best tour I've ever done. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It was the best tour I've ever been a part of in my entire life. And I was sad when we got done. Dude, the fucking dropping them at the airport in New York after the last show, that felt like getting like the level of emotion that I can describe that, like leaving them at the airport and saying bye to everybody. I don't think I've felt that kind of gut wrenching emotion since I like was in high school and like got broken up with by a girl or something. Like that's what it felt like. Did I get time to FaceTime Claire and Ingrid every day? Yeah, I did. And it was great too, because like Ingrid is at the age where while she doesn't understand what I'm doing, she understood that I was on a bus because she likes buses. She has a thing for buses. She understood that I was on a bus with Electric Callboy. And she refers to Kevin as Spaceman. Kevin is Spaceman to Ingrid. And every day when we'd FaceTime, she'd ask where Spaceman is. And if Kevin was in the room or he was walking by and overheard it, he would get on FaceTime and talk to Ingrid, and it just made her day. And the thing I loved about this tour is that some of the guys in the band are also dads, and they all have kids somewhat like around Ingrid's age, kind of within a couple of years. So we kind of had like a dad support group out there. Like there were times where they could tell when I got off FaceTime, I was kind of sad and somebody would give me a hug, and or I would do the same with somebody else. Like it It was pretty awesome. It was cool to be like on the road with guys that had kids the same age and that understood what we were all going through. Did I get to do some guitar teching at some point just for fun? Nope. I didn't do anything because I didn't need to do anything. This crew is the best crew I've ever been a part of in my life. Not once on this tour did I ever have to worry about anybody doing their job correctly or getting things done. Like 100% pros all around. And they brought quite a few people with them. Like European bands, when they come over here, usually don't bring crews this big, but they brought a lot of their guys. And their guys were fucking amazing. Like everybody. And the other thing that's wild, every tour I've ever been on, there's always at least one or two people on the tour that are just insufferable. Their attitudes are terrible, or they're really arrogant. And when they walk into a room, you're like, oh, this guy. Didn't have that on this tour. Literally, not one person. There wasn't one insufferable person on this tour. I enjoyed every second I got to be around everybody, and that has never happened on a tour. Leo said, was I the only American or local tech roadie, etc. on the tour? No, our bus drivers were American, obviously, because bus company was. But our merch girl, Lily, who some of you probably met if you went to the merch table, she is also American. But me and her were the only two like road crew people other than the drivers that were American. And Lily is fucking awesome. She's one of the best merch people I've worked with. She was absolutely badass at what she did. What was the most challenging thing I had to deal with throughout the tour, not including Blue Ridge? Making sure there was enough Coca-Cola for David. Holy fuck. You'd think the world was going to end every single night. Tank emergency. No more Coca-Cola. I mean, of course I'm joking, but that was a thing. Every night we would have to get more Coke. The most challenging thing, I think the most challenging moment that I had on the tour was figuring out the bus driver situation, getting into Canada and stuff like that. That was probably the most stressed I was on the whole tour, because if that didn't happen, we would have had to cancel our Canada shows. But it happened, so no big deal, whatever. Real Bad just said the whole tour looked challenging to me, so few days off. Yeah, but you kind of get used to that. Like, it wasn't too bad. I think it was the worst for the singers, because they definitely have the most strain, especially when you have like 4 show days in a row and you don't really get time off. And we have so much air conditioning in the US, and even on the buses and stuff, like I know the air was messing with them at some points. That's how it was when I was out with Powerwolf when they were here too, though. Like the air conditioning definitely was messing with Attila's voice. But Kevin and his fucking hairdryer, dude. One of my favorite moments of the tour, I think I laughed to myself pretty good. I went to the back of the bus to get something, and Kevin always napped in the back of the bus, because he's a big dude. He doesn't really fit in a bunk that great. I would probably sleep in the back of the bus too. I walked in the back of the bus, and he's laying on his back, and he's asleep. He's dead asleep. And there's a pillow next to his head. I should have taken a picture of this. There's a pillow next to his head, and he's got the air dryer on, pointed at his face while he's sleeping. I just opened the door, and he's asleep, like, and the air dryer is just blowing full speed into his face. I fucking love those guys, man. Top weird German habits from crew band I noticed when working or chilling with them. I wouldn't say they had any weird habits, but there were some very noticeable things from their crew, especially, that was way different from a lot of the Americans that I've worked with. Americans complain a lot, like a lot, about everything. Walk into a venue, oh, this place sucks. Oh, they don't have this. Oh, this place. Their crew didn't complain ever, like about anything. They just had that mindset of, nah, we'll make it. We're like, I remember when Blue Ridge was such a cluster at the end of the night for us loading out. I remember looking at my clock and looking at their production manager, Patrick, who also does their lighting. And I was like, we're getting close to possibly having to cancel a show territory right now because of how bad this is going. And he just looks at me and he's like, we'll never have to cancel a show. He goes, we could show up at doors and we will still make this happen. And I was like, damn. It's like, if that was an American, he'd be fucking freaking out and stressing out. Yeah, no, their crew is just fantastic to work with. But seriously, I can't Like I can't say enough about those guys. Every single one of them. Everybody. No, when it comes to work, dude, it like seriously. I just saw Olaf say Germans do not play around if it goes about work. I mean, really, these guys, their whole crew every day. Like I found myself like walking into certain venues and be like, oh, this is going to be challenging. Like there were a couple venues on that tour where we actually couldn't get our video carts into the venue and we had to rent video, which that's one thing I'll tell you right now that pissed me off about this tour. Fucking venues, man. And I got to preface this by saying that this is me as a tour manager, like criticizing some of the venues. There are tour managers that don't do their jobs correctly either. But if I get a rider from a venue that tells me that their doors into their loading doors into the venue are 2 meters tall, I fucking expect them to be 2 meters tall. There were a couple venues we showed up to where I was like, that is not 2 meters. So the way I operate is I advance shows a month out and then I advance shows another week out. There were a couple of the venues that when I re-advanced a week out, I was like, hey, just to confirm, like our lighting carts are this tall and they're this big. Like, are they going to fit in your venue? And they're like, oh, actually, no, I don't think so. And I'm like, well, why does your rider say this when that's not accurate? So there were a couple venues where we couldn't bring all of our stuff in and we had to rent stuff. A band's rider, like our rider, has every little detail of everything we're going to bring with us. Our crew members, what they do, what their names are, who's in the band, what kind of gear we're bringing with us, how many buses we're going to have, what we need for power, our hospitality list, everything. Everything we need. It's set up perfectly. And the venues have the same thing. They have a tech pack, a rider, that says what the load-in is like, how long the push is, how big the doors are, how big the elevators are. So I have to go off that stuff. And when that information is wrong, that can f*** up an entire show. And we almost had some moments where it did, but we found out beforehand and we got everything solved. Any feedback from the venues after the shows? Yeah, actually, I'm big on feedback. So when I meet the venue people every day, I tell them, I was like, I want to hear how your day was at the end of the day. If there's any problems with my crew or my band, let me know. If there's any problems with the openers, let me know. I'll tell you right now, almost every single venue I left on this tour, I was hugging the production managers when we were leaving. That's how good our days were at a lot of these venues, except for Blue Ridge. I did not hug anybody that day. But yeah, if you couldn't tell, I absolutely loved this tour. I love the Electric Callboy guys. If you guys have any more questions, you can drop them in the comments and I'll try and answer stuff when I get to it. But yeah, to everybody that's on Twitch, over 600 people. This is the most people that have ever been on one of my Twitch streams. It's crazy. So thank you so very much. If anybody would like to join us on Twitch sometime, you can go to twitch.tv/TankTheTech. Also on social media, my handle is pretty much @TankTheTech on everything. But yeah, hopefully we'll be getting back into regular content soon. But other than that, I got nothing else. So to everybody out there, wherever you are in the world, be safe, be kind to each other. I love you all, and I'll be back very soon with another video.